Welcome to The People's View, a program dedicated to discussing local, state, and national issues and their effect on the American people. The People's View provides a platform for state representatives and national figures to present their viewpoint. Whether it's social, economic, or financial topics, you'll hear it on The People's View.
Hello, this is Carl Seidel, and welcome to The People's View. Pete Silva is my co-host, and tonight's guest is Howard Coffman. And Howard's a person who's an activist, ran for the state House of Representatives, and also a substitute teacher in the school system. And Howard, you recently made the newspapers by talking about substitute teaching at a Board of Education meeting. Can you tell us a little bit about your background behind all that?
Sure. Let me first introduce what the substitute teachers do and things like that. So in the event of teachers absent, either for professional development or personal reasons, substitutes get called. Sometimes it's the night before, oftentimes it's the morning of, scramble 1 hour into the classroom, and you really try to deliver the lesson plan that the school teacher left for you, which is great. And a lot of times they do have plans they leave for us. Some of it's quite detailed and things. Sometimes it's makeshift, what I call makeshift, where it's a movie and what I call a word search, which maybe we'll talk about that in another minute. But my main reason for wanting to speak to the school board is it dawned on me one day. I was talking with one of the paraprofessionals. Do you know what the paraprofessionals do?
Let us know. Let's pretend we don't.
Oh, okay. These are folks who have infinite patience. That's the first thing I want to say about a paraprofessional is they have infinite patience. They work with kids that may have physical or mental disabilities. Sometimes they're assigned to a person. Sometimes they're assigned to a class. A lot of times you'll see them working one-on-one with students to help them with their assignment. So I'm talking to one of these folks that I've known for a couple of years, and she told me that the paraprofessionals are assigned to grades. They start in middle school, we're talking about right now. So they start with these kids in 6th grade, they follow them 6th, 7th, and 8th. When they graduate, they go back to new kids in a 6th grade level. So they follow them through their 3 years at the school. So they really have time with these kids, they get to know these kids, they develop a rapport with these kids, and of course the teachers themselves develop relationships with the paraprofessionals. So one of the things I learned in my business world career was this concept of continuous process improvement. I don't know if you guys, I know you probably know all about it. But anyway, if you have something and it's working, great. Is there a way to improve it? So I came up with the idea that, well, why don't they do the same thing with the substitute teachers? Because I had been in one particular middle school 7 out of 10 days. And I'm just in the hallway all the time, and the kids see you and things like that. And I realized that being assigned in that single school, and it happened to be fairly frequently in one particular wing of the schools, you know, they have a 6th grade wing, a 7th grade wing, and an 8th grade wing. So I was pretty isolated in one of the wings, and the familiarity really had benefit. It had benefit for the staff, the faculty, the teachers, had benefit for the students, and of course for myself, because I feel more you're part of a routine and things like that. So that was what I wanted to bring to the school board. So that was the bulk of my proposal, which essentially was, gee, you should reconsider the substitute teachers to becoming an asset rather than, which I believe is the case. I think I said it in the paper was oh, I forgot the terminology, forgive me, but it was, you know, they just put up with a necessary evil. Because substitute teachers, teachers don't know what sub they're going to get. So it's totally random in that regard. So the teachers have no clue who's going to be in their room the next day. If
There's no attempt at trying to have some kind of continuity if you had been in there a month earlier or something like that, or have somebody that they're familiar with?
It may occur, but I think that's in the process of scheduling.
Yeah.
And the lady that does the scheduling is terrific. I don't know how she juggles what she does.
How
Her
many
name
of
is.
you are there in the city?
You know, I honestly don't know. I'm curious about that. I would venture a guess, total guess, anywhere from 20 to 70 or 80. I think there's a fair number of people that rotate in and out of the program based upon their job situations. We are on call on a given day. I also have the right to say, no, I can't make it next week. You know, I need a day
How does someone
off.
become a substitute teacher?
On Ledge Street is the school district office. I would say just go in and file an application. There will be a background check. The city of Nashua, at least when I did it, actually paid for the fingerprinting. Some school districts require the sub to pay for the fingerprinting, but Nashua did not. Then I went through an interview with one of the assistant principals in one of the middle schools. And it was there that in my article I referred to glorified babysitting. It was from that particular assistant principal who said to me, you know, kids' security is the primary thing. The reason why we're there is to make sure they're safe. They're safe to themselves, the school, and to other students. If you can get a lesson in, that's great. It is glorified babysitting.
Really?
Oh, yeah. Sometimes it's taming cats and lions and dogs all in the same cage. Today was one of the worst days I've had as a substitute teacher.
Can you tell us what happened?
You know, I don't.
This is
no,
in middle school.
This was a middle school. Yeah, one of the 3 middle schools. I don't want to get too specific right now, but it was like not even herding cats. It was trying to tame lions. One class had about 4 or 5 kids late in the day, and they were they were not going to do the assignment, and they did everything they could to ignore it. In an earlier class today, there were 3 boys that there were 2 paraprofessionals in that class, maybe a total of 10 kids. We got the 3 boys outside. One of the paras got the 3 boys into the hallway, and we're left with, I think, 1 or 2 boys and maybe 4 or 5 girls. And actually, that was a breakthrough class, because once the disruptors were out, I was able to get these kids to read, here, stand up in front of the room and speak loudly so everybody could hear you. And they did. And there were a couple of kids who had not done that before and really took a breakthrough step. And there was actually a speech pathologist who works for the city in the school system, and she happened to be in the room looking for other books. And she got to see me in action, which was fun for me, because I really do like engaging the kids. I care about their education. And because of that concern, I don't have students in the school system. My life has never given me the gift of children. So here I am trying to be productive in some way.
Your family.
Well, I won't go that far. Not at all.
I have one of my closest friends is a teacher in the middle school system. So we talk all the time, and of course, you know, from one side of the political side, I think one of the biggest evils in our country is the teachers' union. It just drives me nuts, and I try to tell everyone if they get a chance to watch or read Waiting for Superman, because it pretty much sums it up. And we share stories on it. By the same token, I feel bad for them, because if you have kids like me, you know, back when I went to school, you could get knocked around a little bit and get in line. And they've gone so far now. I heard today, as a matter of fact, in Ipswich, Mass, the principal decided at a junior high school that they're not going to have an award ceremony for the kids who did well, because it'll offend the kids who didn't make honors. I mean, what have we become? And that's the thing. When it gets to that point where it's so watered down in this nanny society that we live in, I don't know how you can be a teacher if you're a good one.
The teacher that I substituted for today, my experience was like her experience. Those kids did not turn on the crazy dial just because I was there today. They have that crazy dial turned up for every one of her classes. That woman, she's got to be a gift from God, because I would not have the patience to be in there every day and put up with that abuse. It's abuse. It's bullying, not only between the students on each other, and of course the paras that are in there trying to assist, but the kids with the teachers, the kids with the administrators, and a substitute teacher, we're the lowest of the low when it comes to a pecking order in a school. The kids know that, and here's one of my concerns that I expressed with the board, was it was my opinion that there was a lack of respect exhibited toward the substitute teachers by the administrators. I'm not picking on teachers here because, like you just said, Peter, their job is unbelievably difficult, especially when they have kids that have decided they're not interested in school, and they totally wipe out any lesson plan that you might want to try to have for the kids that are there who are actually trying to learn. But so it's bullying. I know, what was it, the Elm Street School had a big program about bullying. The teachers union is on the radio about bullying. Well, they need to look inside the school in terms of the bullying from the administration to the substitute teachers. Now, that's a pretty big statement to make, and I'll give you 2 examples. One of them occurred in the North High School, actually. Usually I don't say what school it is. But that particular day, we had, well, let me say it this way. In 2 different episodes, I had to call the police twice. I'm sorry, 2 different episodes, called the police 2 different times in the high school because the kids were throwing things at each other, pushing each other, total chaos. But that could have been avoided because the administration knew that that was a tough class, because typically the head of the department would normally have been in that class with the assigned teacher. Instead, they dropped a sub in there, unknowing of the kids, unknowing of the history, and just setting you up for catastrophe. So that's my comment about the administration could do better. I also have a little issue with the administration right now, which is one day I was a French teacher, and I was going in between language teachers. She taught French and Spanish, both in the middle schools. She hopped from one school in the morning to another in the afternoon. And I put in a request for mileage reimbursement. And I just asked what the procedure might be, and I was told there was no procedure for mileage reimbursement. And you know, we get a whopping $63 a day to be in the room and to handle. Sometimes it's a glorified experience. The kids are wonderful, and you feel like you're making a contribution, and it's quite rewarding. Then other days, or parts of days, it's total chaos, and you're questioning, why am I even here? Can I leave now? But the administration has a responsibility. I think it's the administration that creates the environment that the teachers and the students work in, and I think they're ignoring the behavior issues are phenomenal. They're atrocious. One child who decides they're going to be disruptive can knock out the productivity of an entire class for the entire period. You tie up an administrator, you tie up the teacher, there's paperwork. I had one kid today tried to lock another kid in a closet, in a little storage closet they had supplies in. Yanked right to the office in a heartbeat. Fortunately, I had a para in the room where I could leave the other kids alone, or at least with an adult.
You're allowed to do that then, to bring them to the office to get some kind of a discipline?
Oh, I do.
But
I have a very low tolerance. I want my kids to have a quiet, productive environment to get their work done. And I tell them that. I'm saying, I'm here to give you a quiet space to do your work. You know, and I have my little riot act that I read them. I tell them, keep your hands and feet to yourself. And the feet came from working in the high school. Do not mess with anybody else or their stuff. I ask them not to throw things. I ask them not to lean back in chairs, because the last thing I want is a student to fall down and hurt themselves.
But what are the real penalties when you have someone that's disruptive and they don't get thrown out of school unless it's really bad?
Right. I mean, if I try not to get kids in trouble. I don't feel that that's my role and responsibility. But like that kid today who put the other kid in the closet, you know, that's not going to happen on my watch. So we deal with that immediately. Most of the time you'd leave a note for a teacher. The teachers ask you, leave comments, tell me if any of my students were disruptive. And they do whatever discipline they will do when they come back. In the middle school, I can say at one of the schools, it's fun because somewhere in there's 1 or 2 enforcer type teachers. You know, it might be a dean, not a dean or assistant principal. They do it, but in some other places, there's always 1 guy or 2 They take that mantle, and they're a disciplinarian, at least for their grade, not for the whole school, but for their grade. And if you say to them, well, you're going to go to Mr. Reinhardt's room, he's a 7th grade teacher at Pennachuck, nobody wants to go to Mr. Reinhardt's room. He is a stand-up guy. He's got lots of credibility with with everybody. And the kids know that if they get to him, they knew they did something wrong, and they will regurgitate what they did wrong, and he'll work them through a process that he's got, some structured process to make them realize what they did.
So Mr. Reinhardt, how come he doesn't get in trouble? Why can't there be more Mr. Reinhardts?
I think it's the man himself, and he's willing to step up and kind of...
The administration's afraid of doing anything with him as much as they are doing anything with the kids, with a formal discipline type.
Well, no, Mr. Reinhardt is there to if I have a problem, he'll say to me in the morning, we greet each other, he says, if you have any problems today, just send them my way. And the other teachers will do that because they're broken up into teams, so they have coverage.
See, I guess what I'm trying to say is, to me, Mr. Reinhardt should be rewarded.
Oh, yeah, absolutely.
Business, Mr. Reinhardt is an asset. Yeah. He's a value to the community, to his school that he's in. So when we have, one of the reasons I got into politics was I put all of my 4 kids have gone through the Nashua School System. I still have 1 in it. But just some of the way things were going, there was this one teacher we had heard about. It was with my oldest daughter. I'm sure she's long gone by now. It was in the 4th grade. We heard all these nightmare stories. I didn't believe any of them until it happened. And my oldest daughter now is a veterinarian. I mean, she was a good student. To be a veterinarian, you got to pay attention.
Oh, it's more competitive than medical school.
And she'd come home, and this kid would be a mess. And her nickname was the old lady baby because we could leave her in a room, go away to Hawaii for 2 weeks, she'd still be sitting there. She'd never cause any problems. You'd wonder where she was. She was reading a book somewhere. So it didn't make sense to me. And then we went and I met this person. She had no business being there. You look at the things like Waiting for Superman, they talk about the rubber room for New York and New Jersey. It really is a serious thing, and that's the bulk of where our taxes go. We're paying that, and we're throwing into this system. And I don't care what anybody says. The union, that's where they get.
Well, I've got myself in a little trouble, but well, not trouble. I made a point, and it was it was an outrageous point, because in some ways, but it's a point worth making. I don't think the school district should have to pay twice when a substitute teacher is out. They have to pay the teacher. I'm talking personal. I'm not talking the professional development. That's totally appropriate. But in a case of a teacher being out for personal reasons, even being sick, the school district pays twice. They pay the sick day for the teacher, and then they pay for somebody like me to come in. And I made that proposal to the school board. I said, I don't think I don't think the schools, the citizens in Nashua should pay twice. Perhaps the teachers should. And I said, or given the contract that they had. In other words, let the union, we're providing, the union provides the contract, they provide the teachers, the services, however that works. I don't know the specifics. But part of what could be negotiated is that fine. In that price that you get and the union dues you collect includes X amount of coverage for sick days and things like that. And I'm not saying the union is the best way to pay for it. My goal was to put the idea on the table. I challenged the school board to what they call a paradigm shift. You have to totally look at this differently to view substitutes as an asset rather than that necessary evil. I went to the school board with the intention of providing information as a service. I really didn't expect anything more than that. I did go in there with a written statement that I read because I wanted to be sure that I delivered the message. Because if I went impromptu, it's so easy to go and lose a topic or things like that. The irony to me is that I did not solicit any input or any contact with the media at all. It was the school board who handed them a copy of my comments.
And they picked it up and made it a headline.
And they picked it up, made it a headline, but neither of those media, either the union leader or the Telegraph, ever contacted me firsthand to ask me anything.
What your motivation was.
Still. And then you have the Mr. Hollowell, who's the school board chairman, I guess that's his title. And then Mr. Conrad, who's the superintendent, they chose to respond to I call it a report, by speaking to the Nashua Telegraph, not contacting me directly. So, and they tried to dismiss what I said, the meat of what I said, which I think the heart of it is the discipline issues. They're overwhelming because you can't get the work done when the kids decide they're not going to do it. It's just impossible.
That leads to some of the other things too. That if there's not a good learning environment, then you're going to have people going over to the community colleges and finding out they have to take remedial classes before they can take any of the regular classes.
If I'm not mistaken, it's 30% of the kids in the Nashua School District when they graduate do not read at level. So that's an obvious deficiency. Yeah. I looked at the kneecap scores. I don't know if you're familiar with that.
Explain to the audience, what is kneecap? What's that acronym stand for?
I honestly don't know, but think testing, testing, testing. They test, I think, in the beginning of the school year.
Oh, yeah.
And at the end of the school year, specific grades for specific subjects. I think they only do the reading, the writing, and the math. I don't think they test science. Now, I had a very interesting conversation with a 6th grade teacher last week where she was saying to me, and there's new kneecap testing going on, I don't know if it's this week or next week, soon, somewhere around now. She observed that she had 15 days of testing in English. Now, if you have 180 school days, or thereabouts, that's almost 10%, it's more, but it's just under 10% is in testing. She loses 3 weeks of instructional time to testing. Okay, we're over-tested, but the kids' grades aren't going up. And I largely think that's environment. And I give all the credit to the teachers for being able to do what they do. You know, they've got this 60 percentile thing in math, or this 73% percentile in reading, or the 49, you believe it's 49% in writing. Well, that's what they can get out with given the tools they have. And I would challenge the administration to give the teachers the tools they need to get beyond this failing hump, these grades, and move these kids into the 80 percentile so they're functional when they get out of high school here.
So in your opinion, if you had to say the number 1 or maybe 2 reasons why they're at those rates, what would you attribute it to?
You know, I'm not a teacher. I just see spot situations from school to school, although I do tend to stay in one school because it's close to where I live. It's very convenient for me. I like the school. You know, that kind of puts me in a jam, but I would say as a substitute teacher, the biggest problems I encounter will be behavior. And the teachers do go out of their way to leave us lesson plans, and we try to accommodate them as much as possible. And we try to do those lesson plans as completely as we can. Maybe halfway, 2/3, it really depends, because we don't have the knowledge. Sometimes it's subject matter. Sometimes it's the flow and the way the kids settle in and how long before they finally get down to get in the mode of doing some work. But I don't know if I'm able to answer. I'd say discipline, there's plenty of issues everywhere, especially when a substitute is in the room. When I went to public school in New York City, everybody beats up on the subs. It's the elephant in the room that everybody knows and remembers, yet it's an accepted aspect of teaching. Mr. Hollowell said, well, the whole sub program is a cost of doing business.
Yeah.
I don't know if you saw that quote in the paper. Yeah. And he said it's valued at about $1 million a year. They pay about $1 million in substitute coverage. But that, again, that's professional development and illness. But Mr. Hollowell, I would just say to you that 1% there is what the mayor asked from you to give them back out of the school budget. Could you get it down to 700? Maybe. I don't know. You'd have to find out how many people take off. But I'll tell you one thing I would do is I wouldn't let any, and I know businesses do that. I worked at a local company, and if you took off the day before or the day after a holiday, you did not get your holiday pay. So one thing that I would recommend is that don't take off the Friday before or the Monday after a vacation week or something like that, or a holiday weekend. They shouldn't get paid for it. Sorry if you're sick, then bring in a doctor's note. You can work out details. But conceptually, I think they're willing to accept what they've got with the sub-program. Quite frankly, I can understand that. I think they have bigger fish to fry because the kids are not getting the kind of, they're not testing the way we need for them to be competent and capable citizens. I will say one thing, and a friend of mine admonished me for doing this, was in my report, he criticized me for pointing out that they say the Pledge of Allegiance incorrectly.
No.
And how?
Well, if you look at the wording, it's one nation under God, comma. The way it's recited in the schools is one nation under God, as if there's a comma after one nation, and it's not. So they say it incorrectly. A lot of us have been saying it incorrectly for a long time. There are textbooks I highlighted to one teacher. I truly have an interest in American history. Nice thing about subbing is when you have free time, you have time. Sometimes they have coverage, and I can talk about that also, but I get to read some things, and I'm getting into my history a lot, trying to backfill things that I've forgotten or didn't learn. And that's one of the things you observe. But I noticed in one of the textbooks they were saying that the reason why the colonies formed was a constitution was to create a strong central government. And you know that's not true.
That's
and
in a textbook?
Yeah. And I tried to point that out to the teacher. I said, you have inconsistencies here. And she said to me, that's your belief. You teach what's in the book. So the teachers are limited by the materials they have, and I think the institutional requirements upon them require them to teach what's in the book, even if it's wrong. And this particular teacher took no notice to find out what was incorrect or whatever. And needless to say, I just walked out, and I haven't been.
I'm surprised
they
still even do the pledge, so I don't know how much I would complain about it.
Well, I've been in one room where a teacher has a sign on the wall telling them that it's optional. Which it is, but,
That's another question.
That's
another thing
and
about
I'm not here to
education,
pick
so-
on individual teachers, because like I said, they do an incredible job given the resources they have. Scheduling, to me, is mind-boggling. They have the trimester thing, so they're every 3 months or whatever. I don't know the actual frequency. They change the courses the kids are in, the order that they do them. They also have, some of the schools run an advisory, what they call an advisory, what we would think of as a homeroom, at the end of the day. Some of the schools run them in the beginning. 2 days a week, it's 25 minutes. The other days, it's 5 minutes. And I always liked consistency in bells, when I was in school. And
it's hard to
but
argue with.
that's me. And I just, if you give the kids a structured environment, it's very predictable and consistent, I think that would be better. I'm not an educator. I'm sure they have tons of research to justify these schedules and minutes per contact with each class and everything else.
Yeah, I don't like to go for the excuse of, well, you're not a professional, you're not a person who has gone through the education courses or something. Most of this is common sense. If you don't have an environment, you're not going to learn. And I think that's the biggest hurdle that we have to overcome with our school system.
If I could say one thing, I would like to challenge the school board. I was thinking about this today. Is that there are 9 school board members, I think, that are elected, and then there's several others that are on the committee at large. They should assign schools to everybody. Of the
Have them
3,
go there?
yeah, so you have 9 people. You have elementary, you have middle school, and you have high school. Okay, 3 of those go and visit on a regular basis the elementaries, 3 go to the middle, and the other 3 can go to the high schools. And they're going to be there at least one day a week, or pop in on them and sit in a class and get a feel for what the street is like. Because it's easy to be in a boardroom, and it's easy to trust your capable, and what are supposed to be capable and competent school officials, administrators, and not know really firsthand what's going on. I love that TV show. I don't watch it too much, but where the boss, undercover boss,
Oh, yeah.
where they literally clean toilets and everything to learn what it's like at the bottom end of the business, to see if the messaging is getting through all the way. And I would challenge the school board to, find the time, make the time to get in there and see what's going on in the school. I'd be happy to give them the the name of the teacher for whom I substituted today and just sit in her class for one day, and it will be a shock.
Well, you know, with that comment, I think we have to come to an end of this nice session.
Okay.
And we have to have you back again after some of this stuff ferments a little bit, and maybe we can find out, maybe you can bring another substitute teacher. And
Well, will it be wine or will it be vinegar? Is, I think, what we're going to have to figure out.
Well, I think we all have that, and I encourage the audience to let us know if there are other questions out there. If people want to come in and talk about it with our school system, we pay a lot of money for it.
$100 million a year in Nashua.
And we ought to be able to get it. It is.
And actually, probably a topic for a future show, I know the time runs out, is the whole notion of this Common Core.
Yeah.
We probably
We'll have
need
to
to
go
all
through
learn
that.
more and bring in a content expert to talk about that, because I think that would be very
I think
revealing
this will be
thing to do.
appropriate coming up with the election that's coming up for new board members.
I wouldn't wait that long.
No, I'm not saying that, but this
Yes.
will feed into that,
I think that's a great idea.
and it's not that far away.
Well, Howard, thanks for coming in.
Oh, you're welcome. I'm pleased to be here. People attend the school board meetings. Your kids are in there. They need a voice.
Yes, they do. And you ought to listen to them, maybe listen to what the kids
Ask
think
the
of their
kids
things.
if their classes are productive.
Yeah.
Do you get a lot of work done? Or how many kids in your class are disruptive? Just ask that question. They'll tell you. I love the kids. They're just very honest and open about the truth, you know.
Well, this is the People's View. It's sponsored by the Nashua Republican City Committee. And if you want to find out more about the organization, just go to nashuagop.org and come to our meetings the second Thursday of every month at 6:30 at the Crown Plaza. Please contact us on our website if we can do anything else and talk about other topics. But thank you for listening in, and good evening.